So we are in Brussels, in Brucity, in Brussels Administrative Center, and you are a curator of art in public space in Brussels, which is very interesting for me because, well, actually art in the public space could mean a lot of things, like sculptures, like graffitis, or even the anti-graffiti methods, maybe, I don't know, sometimes. What is the most interesting part in your daily job?
I work here now for 1 year, and the idea is to work on a vision on a long term, because there are already sculptures, installations installed in the public space from Brussels for 30 years now by a committee, but there was no curator to make a vision on the territory and on the concept. So my job is to develop kind of a vision, and my vision is based on diversity, on multiplicity, that is really specific for Brussels. And also what we call in Brussels the melting pot. That means all these mixing things together. Brussels is not Paris, it's not London, it has its own specificity. And how can we work further on that history of Brussels with Manneken Pis, with street art, with fountains, historical fountains, and how can we implement that vision of Brussels with contemporary art? That is very diverse. To do that, we also want to make a dynamization and not only put sculptures that will stay for a long time, for a few years, but also we would like to make some more programmation for a few months or 1 year, for example. That gives the possibility to work on a shorter level, on a shorter time, because work in public space, integration of works in public space takes lots of times. That's what I see now since 1 year, that there are so many levels of administration, of politics, of so many levels that it takes lots of time to install works in public space.
What is also interesting in Brussels, for me at least, that London and Paris has this own big art center like Tate Modern, MoMA, Pompidou, and Brussels so far not.
No.
And that means that high amount of small spaces are there. We'd like to show their work, and how can you enlarge them maybe, or how can you engage them to the public spaces?
When I speak about diversity of the collection, this is also the specificity of Brussels. The diversity of spaces from very different levels. There are big art spaces like Bozaar or the museums, but there are also very more confidential places. And I think all these people, and also young artists and well-known artists, they live together, they work together on this space of Brussels. And I think it's interesting in public space to also be a mirror of the identity of Brussels, and to work together with art schools, with young artists, but also with very famous artists that live in Brussels, or not in Brussels, but that can implement that identity of what Brussels is, in fact.
For me it was a big surprise when I saw the Centra publication about 11 art collectors and big art collections.
Yeah.
And they are, well, actually really big. I mean, the Van Herens is like, it could be a very big museum.
Yeah, it are pieces that have the quality of museum pieces.
On the other hand, I know some artists here who works in a 20 square meter small places, and they struggling with the daily activities. When I go to an exhibition or when I go to an art center, I don't see that difference.
I think you have to make a dialogue. That's what I do since I work. A dialogue between people that are well known and people that are totally not known. My interest for outsider art is that, for example, is to show people that don't have the ability for themselves to show their work. And lots of young artists or not so known artists, but quality artists, that's a very important element, because you have to have a message, you have to have a work that has some content and that have some personality, identity. For me, that's very important. And that's so important for an artist that is well known and internationally, or a less known artist. But I think what is interesting is to make dialogues between all these different levels, and to not have a hierarchy of these are the big artists, these are the stars, and that are the artists. In the exhibitions, in some exhibitions that I made in Central, I really showed well-known artists with not known artists. And for example, one of the elements of the programmation was to ask a mid-career artist that has already a career but not big international career to invite another artist. And what was interesting to see in that program is that they always took an artist that was older than them and more well known than them. Is they wanted to be lifted up by the international artist. But I think I don't make hierarchies. For me, what is important is how I feel the work, what is the message of the work, what it can bring for the people, for the society. In fact, how art can make a connection with society and with individual, both.
How this happening in the reality? You go to studios, you make some meetings in places like this, or how do you do it?
It's diverse. We are contacted by artists. We see artists because we want to see them, because we go to lots of exhibitions, because you read a lot of articles. You have to be connected with what is happening locally and internationally, of course. That connection with artists for me is the fantastic part of the job. And in this new job that I have since 1 year, there are lots of other elements that are so difficult that the connection with the artist is not so evident. But I think the job of curator is really interesting because of that. I call it nourriture, spiritual, intellectual, and it's really so fundamental for my existence, and I have the happiness that it's my job, in fact. But without the artists, I think I couldn't live. Artists that I know, artists that I discover, sometimes the conversations and the contacts are easy, sometimes not. It depends from one artist to the other. But I think everything goes out from that connection with artists, of what they give you, what the messages they give you, and how they see reality, and how they open your world every time with their own conception.
Let's talk about the Centra years. You was a artistic director for 10 years, which is a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I just went through some of the exhibitions, and some of them I visited, not that much unfortunately, but some. And yes, what you mentioned is it's very diverse. You had the art brut things. A big exhibition with many artists, but also you had some kind of solo things. So what was your main motivation? I think it's one of the hardest thing to select, to pick up cherries from the table, the art table.
When I arrived in Central, before that I was 10 years director of Art et Marges, a museum for outsider art, and I was curator in other spaces. But when I arrived in Central, I wanted to give an identity to that art center. It existed already for more than 5 years, but I really wanted that it made that connection with Brussels, because it's an art center that is financed by the town of Brussels. So for me it was important to have that identity of Brussels. Brussels' identity, like I already told, is multiple. Brussels is one of the most international cities. So there were in fact 3 important axes that I wanted to work on. First, to develop and to help artists based in Brussels, internationally or Belgium, in dialogue. So I invited an artist, that artist was invited to make a selection from another artist to make a dialogue. The second element were more group exhibitions, thematical exhibitions, where I make connections between internationally well-known outsider artists and based in Brussels artists, based on the concept and the idea that was developed. For example, I made 2 exhibitions about Brussels that was called Bruxelles Universelle, in which it was in fact a questioning of the identity of Brussels. The first one was based on the history of Brussels and the identity of folklore, of different things that are so specific. It went from Manneken Pis, the costumes of Manneken Pis, the atomium, but also Jacques Brel and Stromae, and contemporary artists that worked in that diversity, in that, and also in how they put their identity in Brussels. What is their connection to Brussels? So it were internationally known artists like Kendall Gears or Kurt Rieslawy or Anne Veronica Jensen, for example, also in that context. So it was a mix from different artists and outsiders too. The third element, I cannot sum up all the projects that I made, but the third element was to help and to give a possibility for young artists to make an exhibition. That was in 2 spaces, in the box and in the lab. And that's Tanja Nazielski that now has taken the direction. She was specialized also in that connection with younger artists. And in that context, there was also a collaboration with Brussels-based art schools, because I think as an art center it is also very important to make that connection with young artists and to give that possibility, and also to rethink this pedagogy. How can we work with an art center with people that are still in art schools, and what can we give them as possibilities?
I think Centra has the vitrine, which is basically only seeable outside from the street, and not from the inner space of the gallery. I think it's a very good idea to that
is an evolution, because long time ago there was a project that was called Comptoir du Nylon, because that vitrine, in fact, it was a shop for socks. So the curator at that time, she made programmation, very interesting programmation in that space, that was only possible to see from the outside. And then with the time we made the connection with the programmation inside. So we made a vitrine from what was inside outside. And then we decided to make it only from the outside again. And now it's a project room for the outside.
Where we sit here, behind you there is an artwork, and for me it looks like a running lane, but also there are stones from marshmallow, maybe. Maybe not. I think still stone should be. So what is the background of this?
Well,
artwork?
here in the Brut City we installed 11 artworks. So we work specifically mostly with the artist to think an artwork for the architecture. So we think it's also part of the collection of art in public space, because this building is also open for the public that comes to have the passport and things like that. And this work is from Casper Bosmans, and he made some research about this place. And in the former buildings there was a running lane for dogs. And then he put that stone that is in fact a replica from a stone that they found when they destroyed the precedent building here. And it's a stone from the 10th century to smash the grains. And inside that stone that he remade, he put elements that are representing dogs. Because you know the name of the Brussels people is Zinneke. Zinneke means a bastard dog, Do you say that like that in English? So it's not a race dog, but it's a mixed dog, and that's really Zinneke means really the identity of Brussels, and that's the artwork that we see here.
And that's the reason of the different colors, I guess.
Yes, also, yeah, and also visually, he thought it was interesting to have these different colors.
You are also an author of this book, L'art des fous, l'art sans marges. This is about art brut mainly, and well, art brut is very interesting. But let's get closer to the topic in some way. So, of course, there are art schools, and when you graduate from art school, you can say that okay, I'm a graduated artist. But also in art, you can say every time that you are an artist. I can say that I am an artist, and nobody can say no, you're not an artist, because I don't need a, let's say, license for that, like an electrician or I don't know, water serviceman.
No.
So even if I don't do any artwork, I can say that I'm an artist, and I think that's good because. Basically, I talked with many people. Last time, Alex Redding from Luxembourg Art Fair, and he mentioned that only 10% from schools succeed in the art life, and the others don't really. They live and work in the sides of the art, but they're not necessarily artists. And when we go, let's say, deeper and deeper. When we say outsider artist, is someone who don't even want to go or doesn't really know that the art school exists and how they operate. I let you now speak because I speak a lot now. So what was your motivation to know more about art brut and write a book about that?
I made actually my doctorate degree about outsider art brut when I was directing that museum in Brussels. But I was fascinated by art brut through Jean Dubuffet. Initiated in 1945, he began a collection of art brut. He was interested in autodidact artists, for example, but also specifically people that were in psychiatry, self-taught artists that have no education. So it's different from the people from whom you speak now. So autodidact artists that has no art education and that doesn't specifically tell that they are an artist and that doesn't specifically want to show their work or sell their work. But like Jean Dubuffet told, that they worked really in a necessity, a kind of necessity. For example, some of them only begin to work when they were 70, 80 years old. But it was kind of a necessity to, at the end of their life, to work. So that art group, because it's not a style or it's somebody that told this is art brut. They themselves didn't say this is art brut. For me, what is interesting is, first of all, to discover these works that are really incredible, very interesting. They are very idiosyncratic, they are very singular, they are really connected to the self of the artist. And what interested me also, and that's what I developed, is that it questions the limits of what is art and what is not art. And the limits of what is art and what is not art are very flexible, and they change with time. They change with the years, with the centuries. And art brut is on that connection between what is art and what is not art. And what I want to show also in this book through three people, through Hans Prinzhorn, that was a psychiatrist, but also art historian and opera singer. Jean Dubuffet, that was an artist and founder of Art Brut and the Art Brut collection. And Harald Zeeman, with whom I had this chance to work, the curator, but he was a curator and he was also an artist. He was more than a curator. Is to show how these people showed that work, how they discovered the work, what was their analysis of that work, and how they wanted to show it or not show it in the official art world. Because for Dubuffet, his philosophy was a very subversive philosophy. He told that these artists were the only true artists. And he put it himself in a kind of schizophrenic situation because he himself was a very famous artist. But he told that his colleague, professional artists, were not really the best artists, but that were the art brut artists that were the most interesting and the richer artists, because they didn't do it to make career, but they did make it because of their need. I question that element because I think every artist works out of a need. That he is professional or not, he needs to make, to draw, to paint. It's very a necessity for his life. But the interest in art brut is that connection also between the human and the artistic. That always interested me. So I went a lot in psychiatric centers, in centers for people with disabilities. That humanistic element is fundamental for me in my way of showing and thinking and presenting art.
For me, of course, I was in Paris in Centre Pompidou to see the big exhibition of Jean Dubuffet.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about a kind of distortion, and distortion is also interesting in these books because what you showed here in the pages, at least for me, you may disagree with me, but it's about a little changing the let's say the normal view into something different. And is it important to have it in this kind of distortion element in art brut?
What do you mean by distortion?
For example, when you see Picasso face.
Yeah.
I mean, when he made the sculpture or made a face, of course, this is not really natural.
When I put that connection with Picasso and artworks from that are considered as art brut, it was to show that, in fact, in the beginning of the 20th century, these artists like Picasso and the Surrealists and Dadaists, they were really interested in the subconscious, in how these artists that were no academical career, how they directly show what is in their mind. He was interested in African art, and that's the connection also with what he made, but also with outsider artists. Art is maybe always a distortion, but it can be a distortion that has a message to show to the society how you read things and how you want to act and change, but it can also be a distortion because in your mind you have a disability, or it can be very different distortions. But what I found interesting is to make these dialogues and also to show how in the art history, art brut has been shown together with other kinds of artists. These artists were very inspired by art brut.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.